Anonymous has warned that the microplastic rabbit hole is one of the most terrifying topics to explore, largely because it reveals an inescapable reality. No matter how much people try to filter their water, eat organic foods, or avoid plastic products, microplastics are already embedded in their lungs, heart, and brain. There is no way to remove them, no way to undo decades of plastic pollution that has found its way into every aspect of life. Scientists have confirmed that these tiny plastic particles have infiltrated human blood, showing that they can travel throughout the body and lodge in critical organs. Recent studies have detected microplastics in lung tissue, even in individuals who had never been exposed to high-pollution environments. They have been found in placentas, meaning that babies are exposed to plastic before they even take their first breath. The fact that microplastics are in the air we breathe, the water we drink, and the food we consume makes them unavoidable. Anonymous has suggested that microplastics represent an unseen health crisis, one that is only beginning to be understood. As researchers continue to investigate, the full extent of the damage caused by these particles may prove to be worse than anyone imagined. Microplastics have infiltrated every aspect of life, from the deepest parts of the ocean to the most remote wilderness. The disturbing reality of their omnipresence was highlighted by Dr. Matthew Walters, who recently took to social media to express his concerns about the extent of microplastic pollution. He described it as a terrifying issue, emphasizing that even a native salmon swimming in an uninhabited Alaskan stream is full of microplastics that have made their way from the ocean. His statement underscores the inescapable nature of this contamination, emphasizing that no amount of hiding or filtering can prevent exposure. Microplastic contamination has now been identified within the respiratory systems of living humans, marking a significant and alarming development. When examined, nearly all specimens analyzed contained microplastic particles, indicating that inhalation is an increasingly common route of exposure. Scientists have confirmed that microplastics are widespread across the planet, leading to the inevitable conclusion that human exposure is unavoidable. This raises serious concerns regarding the potential health effects of long-term microplastic accumulation within the body. A recent study involving 13 patients who underwent surgical procedures provided further insight into this growing issue. Tissue samples collected from these individuals revealed the presence of microplastics in 11 out of the 13 cases. The most frequently detected particles included polypropylene, which is commonly used in plastic packaging and pipelines, as well as polyethylene terephthalate, a material widely used in plastic bottles. These findings align with previous research documenting the presence of microplastics in lung tissue collected during autopsies, further demonstrating the prevalence of these pollutants within the human body. For years, scientists have observed how microplastics enter the human system through food, water, and air. However, the revelation that these particles are now circulating within human blood for the first time in recorded history has deepened concerns about the potential consequences. In March 2022, researchers detected microplastics in human blood, proving that these particles are capable of traveling throughout the body and lodging in various organs. While the full extent of their impact remains unknown, preliminary research has shown that microplastics cause damage to human cells in laboratory settings. Air pollution particles, which behave similarly to microplastics, are already known to contribute to millions of premature deaths worldwide each year. Laura Sadowski, a senior researcher at Hull York Medical School in the UK, expressed her astonishment at the presence of microplastics in the lower regions of the lungs. The size and concentration of these particles defied previous assumptions about the body's natural filtration mechanisms. The human respiratory system is designed to trap and expel large particles before they reach deep into the lungs, yet the presence of microplastics in these lower regions suggests that these tiny fragments are capable of bypassing natural defenses. This discovery challenges existing scientific understanding and highlights the urgent need for further research into how microplastics travel within the body. Sadowski and her colleagues emphasized the significance of their findings, noting that the data contributes to the broader fields of air pollution research, microplastics contamination, and human health. They believe that this information could help scientists create realistic laboratory models to better study the effects of microplastic exposure on human health. The study, which has been approved for publication in Science of the Total Environment, involved an extensive analysis of lung tissue samples. To ensure accuracy, control samples were used to eliminate the possibility of background contamination, underscoring the meticulous nature of the research. Microplastics have also been found in other parts of the human body. In a 2021 study conducted in Brazil, researchers analyzed autopsy samples and discovered that 65% of the individuals examined had microplastics in their respiratory systems. The study focused on older individuals, providing insight into the long-term accumulation of microplastics over a person's lifetime. The most commonly detected particle in this study was polyethylene, the plastic used in disposable bags. These findings suggest that inhalation of microplastics is not just an occasional occurrence, but a widespread and continuous process. Further evidence of microplastics in human tissue dates back decades. In 1998, a study in the United States examined lung cancer patients and found synthetic fibers embedded in their lung tissue. While at the time, researchers did not explicitly link these fibers to microplastics, it is now clear that synthetic materials have been infiltrating human bodies for far longer than previously understood. This raises the unsettling possibility that microplastics may have been accumulating within human tissues for generations, with unknown health consequences. The growing body of research indicates that the presence of microplastics in human lungs, blood, and other tissues is not an isolated phenomenon, but a deeply concerning global issue. Scientists fear that prolonged exposure to these pollutants could contribute to respiratory diseases, cardiovascular issues, and even neurological conditions. While more research is needed to fully understand the long-term health implications, early evidence suggests that microplastics could be significantly more harmful than previously thought. Microplastics are no longer an abstract environmental concern. They are a tangible and invasive presence within human bodies. They have permeated the food chain, infiltrated the air we breathe, and settled into the organs that keep us alive. The discoveries made in recent years serve as a warning that society must take immediate action to reduce plastic pollution. Without intervention, the infiltration of microplastics into human biology will only continue, potentially leading to devastating consequences for public health. Dr. Matthew Walters' warning about the severity of the microplastic crisis is not an exaggeration. His statement that no amount of hiding or filtering can save individuals from exposure reflects the grim reality that plastic pollution has become an inescapable part of modern life. The research conducted on microplastics in human tissue is only the beginning of what may become one of the most pressing health concerns of the 21st century. Scientists, policymakers, and the public must work together to mitigate the impact of microplastic contamination before the damage becomes irreversible. Archaeologists searching for Cleopatra find a geometric miracle tunnel. Far beneath a temple in the ancient ruins of Taposiris Magna, a city on the Egyptian coast, archaeologists made an incredible discovery. They uncovered a tunnel which is being referred to as the geometric miracle. Kathleen Martinez from the University of Santo Domingo uncovered the structure when searching for the lost tomb of Cleopatra. The tunnel was 13 meters below the ground, 2 meters tall, and roughly 1,300 meters long. It was built into sandstone and boasts some exceptional engineering brilliance to pull it off. It has been compared to the Eupalinos tunnel on the Greek island of Samos, which is equally large and impressively designed. Martinez says this is a huge discovery for the team and could also take them one step closer to finding the lost tomb of Cleopatra. However, they still need to figure out the reason for these tunnels and what might be inside the temple. Their hope is that after further exploring, they may be able to find the room that holds the tombs of Cleopatra and her husband Mark Antony. This would be the largest discovery of the 21st century, and archaeologists are extremely excited to continue exploring the temple. Nonetheless, the tunnel is an incredible discovery and has already presented researchers with some hidden treasures. They uncovered several pieces of pottery and a unique block of limestone within the tunnel. Even if the tunnel does not lead to the lost tombs, it will significantly help archaeologists to understand the history of the temple better. Now we just have to wait and see what else they can uncover in the near future. Bible stolen from US, found in Netherlands. The Pittsburgh Library lost a Geneva Bible from its rare collection of books nearly 20 years ago, and it has just been discovered in a strange place. The book was said to have been published in 1615, and its home was once the Carnegie Library in Pittsburgh. A former archivist that worked at the library and a rare book dealer was accused of stealing nearly 300 rare books with an estimated value of $8 million. However, recently the book was discovered in the Netherlands. It was found at the American Pilgrim Museum in Leiden. The museum had paid $1,200 for the book, but has now returned it to its original home in Pittsburgh. The FBI hopes this recent case will inspire other collectors and museums to check their inventory and determine if anything might be stolen. As of now, only 18 of the 300 books have been recovered. One of these books is the Philosophiae Naturalis Principia Mathematica by John Adams, which has a value of $900,000. That being said, another book by philosopher Adam Smith, called An Inquiry into the Nature and Causes of the Wealth of Nations, has yet to be recovered and is estimated to be worth $180,000. The library has closed the display that used to hold these books and will only be reopening it once the others have been recovered. As a result, the recently found Bible has not yet been put back on display, as the museum is still deciding whether they will continue to share it with the public. Fortunately, some of the stolen books have been returned, but it may be many years before all 300 are returned to the library's collection. We can only hope that they are discovered and brought back so everyone can enjoy looking back at the history they represent. Secret underground theatre found in the catacombs. The Paris catacombs are quite an intriguing place indeed. So much so, the catacombs have been featured in many famous horror stories, such as the movie As Above, So Below. In this network of underground tunnels, lined with skulls and bones, you would not expect to find much of anything resembling the modern world. However, Paris police discovered one such thing only a handful of years ago. In September 2004, police were undergoing a training exercise in uncharted parts of the catacombs when they found a sign that said, "Building site, no access." Naturally, if there were such a thing, they would know about it. They pushed on and found a camera recording them. Continuing further into the area, a recording of dogs barking played, presumably to warn them to not go any further. But they did. They stumbled upon a 400 square meter chasm containing a cinema, dining room, and other amenities. It was equipped with a projector, chairs, and a fully stocked bar. There was also a stockpile of many films, ranging from 1950s movies to modern thrillers. If that wasn't enough, there was professionally installed electricity and even 3 telephone lines connected to the area. As it turns out, the area was created by Les UX, the Urban Experiment, a mysterious group that improves hidden corners of Paris that have fallen into disrepair. It consists mainly of urban explorers, artists, architects, and historians, and they held film festivals in this little cavern in the catacombs. Wouldn't you like to secretly watch a spooky film beneath the streets of Paris and sip a cask of wine? Amontillado, perhaps? The Lost Wealth of Ophir. King Solomon is one of the most famous characters of the Old Testament and was the 3rd king of Israel. He was also one of the wealthiest people to ever exist during that period. He was well known as a savvy and knowledgeable leader that ruled the Middle East for nearly 4 decades. King Solomon collected an immense amount of gold during his reign and was known for having 500 tons of it. He used his gold to create armor, clothing, plates, and a throne from the rare metal. In today's value, it's estimated that King Solomon would have a net worth of $60 trillion based on the immense amount of gold he owned. The gold was held in the Cave of Ophir, but as of now, no one knows where that is. Unfortunately, the Bible often discusses the king's wealth, but never provides concrete details on where this cave can be found. Some experts claim that he collected this gold with the help of Phoenician King Hiram, who ruled Tyre, modern-day Lebanon. Therefore, the cave could be located in one of these regions. But these regions and their people were known to travel often, and the hidden cave of Ophir could be somewhere in Africa, Asia, or America. Some archaeologists have claimed to have already found the lost mine of Ophir and argue that the metal which made Solomon his money was copper and not gold. But there is yet to be any conclusive evidence to back up these claims. The existence and locations of this cave are still heavily discussed today. Archaeologists are still searching for the hidden cave and all its wealth. Scientists predict a mega tsunami may devastate eastern US coastline. One of the most feared attributes of a tsunami is its unpredictability. Being primarily caused by an earthquake, tsunamis don't come with warnings except for the short window of time after an earthquake happens. According to scientists' projections, there will be a mega tsunami that will probably cause some serious devastation in the eastern coastline of the United States. Whilst no one knows when it will actually happen, what we do know about this looming natural disaster is that the mega tsunami will be caused by the eruption of a huge volcano called Cumbre Vieja in the Canary Islands. Scientists predict that the tsunami wave brought by the eruption will be way more massive than any tsunami wave recorded in the past. We may not know the exact date of when this will happen, but what we know for certain is that it is indeed bound to happen in the future. Based on the advanced model created by Simon Day of the University of College London and Stephen Ward of the University of California, this mega tsunami would cause waves as high as 100 meters along the West Saharan shore and waves as high as 40 meters on the north coast of Brazil and water walls towering 50 meters in the air off the coast of Florida and in the Caribbean. Aside from the massive waves, scientists also predict that an area of the Cumbre Vieja will collapse, which will create a huge landslide in the volcano's western side. The volcanic eruption will be so disruptive that the volcano itself will be severely deformed. According to Day's projections, a huge piece of rock with twice the volume of the Isle of Man, which has an area of 572 square kilometers located between Great Britain and Ireland, will probably fall off and create a debris avalanche extending up to 60 kilometers from the island. According to the forecast created by Day and his team, Cumbre Vieja's collapse would cause the seawater to rise as high as 900 meters and tens of kilometers in width. As this massive water collapses and rebounds, huge waves would be formed, intensified by what is called a tsunami wave train. In a span of 10 minutes, this tsunami would travel about 250 kilometers. Day and his team released a message for the public not to panic at this time. If anything, this gives people that are close to the danger zone some comfort. He said, eruptions of Cumbre Vieja occur at intervals of decades to a century or so, and there may be a number of eruptions before its collapse. Although the year-to-year probability of a collapse is therefore low, the resulting tsunami would be a major disaster with indirect effects around the world. Tonga's strange and massive eruption. Hunga Tonga Hunga Hape is a volcano named for the two islands that sit on its rim, and that stands to the east of Australia. In December 2021, this seemingly sleeping volcano erupted in a series of turbulent and drastic tantrums that lasted well into the middle of January 2022. The sound of these events was so loud that they were heard all the way in Alaska, more than 6,000 miles away from the volcano. The extremity of this occurrence was such that for quite some time, scientists didn't have the chance to study what happened. It was not until a group of geologists and researchers were able to traverse the area and get a closer look at the aftermath of these eruptions that they were able to decipher some of what had happened. Surveys of the region's seafloor suggested that the blast excavated almost 2.5 miles of rock, meaning that if this is confirmed to be an accurate reading, this volcano's eruption will have surpassed the largest recorded in the past century. Currently, a blast at Mount Pinatubo in the Philippines in 1991 holds that title. Regardless, studies of the area have identified record-breaking numbers and revealed the shocking events in the aftermath of Hunga Tonga Hunga Hape's eruptions. The blast sent ash and hot searing gas into the air, reaching heights of about 35.4 miles into the sky, a measurement unprecedented before this. It also injected a shocking 146 teragrams of vaporized water into the atmosphere, which may have caused a slight rise in climate. It also sparked a tsunami that traveled around the world. The team that set out to study the region was part of a collaboration between New Zealand's National Institute for Water and Atmospheric Research and the Nippon Foundation, called the Tonga Eruption Seabed Mapping Project. Their expedition was followed by Sea Kit International's uncrewed Max Lima, operated remotely by researchers in the United Kingdom. Both research efforts included implementing different methods of scrutinizing the region, including mapping out the seafloor, taking pictures and videos, and studying the water column, and collecting samples from the volcanic residue, rocks, and ash. Studies offered insight into the factors that caused the resulting tsunami and the movement of magma within the surrounding waters of the volcano. And though there is still so much to learn about this natural disaster and its effects, all the information gathered up until now shows us how much more there is to learn and understand. Scientists finally read the oldest biblical text ever found. After all this time, scientists were able to decipher and read the oldest biblical scripture ever discovered. Archaeologists had the scripture in their possession for many years, but until now have been unable to read its contents as a result of the scroll's fragility. The paper itself is brittle, slightly burnt, and could crumble at the slightest touch. However, with the aid of advancing technology, scientists were able to glimpse at the scripture inside. The biblical text was revealed to be from the book of Leviticus. Its very existence proves that the Hebrew Bible is far older than merely 2 millennia and predates the Bible's assumed origins. Researchers from Jerusalem and Kentucky both worked together in collaboration on this project to figure out a way to read the contents of the passage without destroying it in the process. Scientists ended up utilizing a technique referred to as virtual unwrapping, which involves using an X-ray scan to produce a 3D model of the item and its contents. Penina Shaw, a participant of the research from the Israel Antiquities Authority, stated, "You can't imagine the joy in the lab when describing the moment that the team managed to successfully analyze the passage's contents through the X-ray. This marks a breakthrough in technological advancement for archaeology. Researchers and scientists alike are hoping that virtual unwrapping will be a technique that might be used to uncover a whole variety of ancient documents too fragile to otherwise handle or touch, lest they fade to dust, that could hold incredible information or change the fundamental way we view history, such as the salvaged documents from the infamous Pompeii after the explosion of Mount Vesuvius in 79 CE that immortalized the entire city in a memorial of ash. Several scrolls and tablets were hardened and preserved by the volcanic ash, but this has also made them extremely delicate, meaning they have never been read. This amazing software ushers in an era of uncovering the secrets within the crevices of our history. Furthermore, this software could spell new ways of preserving antiques and have a wide application of uses. The biblical passage in question was found at a site close to the Dead Sea called Ein Gedi, specifically within the arc of the ruins of what used to be a synagogue which had long since burnt down, causing fire damage to the scriptures inside. The archaeologists which made the discovery, namely Yosef Porath, the man who led the excavation back in the 1970s, chose to keep them secluded safely for many decades, until now, out of the fear of their destruction at human hand. Penina Shaw, the lab manager, was hesitant to scan and work on something as delicate as the biblical texts, but reluctantly agreed. And so the scrolls were X-rayed, and then those X-rays were input into a tomography report using a hospital CT scan to show the organs of the scrolls, that is to say, their contents. Computer science researcher William Brent Seals was sent the results of this data at the University of Kentucky. Despite the breakthrough in technology, only one of the several scrolls was successfully analyzed, translated, and read by scholars. Specifically, virtual unwrapping turns the 3D X-ray of the paper into digital layers you can shift and separate using a computer. Using the previously mentioned unnamed digital software, the researchers were able to garner what layers of the image had ink or text on them. Simulations were also used to virtually flatten the paper, making it possible for several passages of the text to be read. Seals commented on the discovery. "Not only were you seeing writing, but it was readable. At that point, we were absolutely jubilant. It's evident that the researchers placed much love and passion into this project and hope to accomplish much more with this new technology." Mysterious new planet ring system discovered inside our solar system. In February of 2023, reports have been shared of a dwarf planet featuring some unusual characteristics that have left scientists trying to understand precisely how and why the expected process has not occurred. In the outskirts of our very own solar system, just beyond Neptune, a dwarf planet has been seen with a distant ring forming around it. This ring, comprised of a mixture of dust and debris, has been likened to those of Saturn, though this dwarf planet's ring is a little more of a shock due to just how far it sits from the planetary body itself. Our solar system boasts several dwarf planets, the most famous of which is, of course, Pluto. Some of these sit along the edge of our solar system, orbiting in a radius larger than that of Neptune, earning themselves the name of trans-Neptunian objects. One such object is Quaoar, a dwarf planet with an unusual ring. We have a fair few examples of planetary rings within our own solar system, whilst Saturn has a whole host. We can also see similar rings around Jupiter, Neptune, and Uranus. Even within dwarf planets and trans-Neptunian objects, we have observed rings in bodies such as Haumea and Chariklo. Even with all these examples, Quaoar remains an outsider. The ring surrounding Quaoar sits unusually far from the dwarf planet itself. So far out, in fact, that prior to conducting these observations, it was assumed to be impossible for a ring to sit so far out. The ring sits at a radius of 2,420 miles away from the center of the dwarf planet. At that distance, it has been thought that the gravitational pull from Quaoar and planetary bodies alike would be too small for the material to remain spread out and dispersed in this manner. When the materials sit outside of the distance, known as the Roche limit, we have expected and seen before that the material coalesces under its own gravity, forming another moon.